Welcome back to Thistle Hill Farmstead. Today we will be assembling an IKEA shoe rack. I have two in these 4 boxes here, and we'll be assembling one. We'll go through it step by step and we'll show you how easy it can be. And as usual, if you find this video helpful, please press that like button. It really helps us out a lot. And remember to subscribe to keep up to date with all of our videos. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to show each page of the instruction manual as we go through it. And on this first page, it gives us a couple of hints. Number 1, we're going to talk about what kind of tools we'll need. We will need a flathead screwdriver, a Phillips head screwdriver, and a hammer. Now, on the second suggestion here, it says it's best to have 2 people. Now, I did this by myself, and I think you'll see that you can do it by yourself also. And then do it on a rug, they say, or a soft surface so you don't chip anything up. And then finally, if you need any help, you can call IKEA for that help. Now, I'm going to start by taking everything out of the box. I'm going to remove it and lay it on the floor here so I can familiarize myself with all the parts that are in the box. This is going to help us when we begin the assembly process, so we'll understand what parts they're asking for which step. Now that I have everything out of the box and laid on the floor, we're going to organize it a bit and then set it to the side. And then we will repeat the same process for the second box. Okay, so now we're going to get the second box and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to open it up and remove all the parts and pieces and organize them on the floor so we can see what we have. Now that we have everything removed from box number 2, we're going to set it to the side, and we'll do the same process that we did with box number 1. We'll organize the parts and set them to the side, and then we'll be ready to begin our assembly process. In this box, we'll find all the fasteners required to assemble the unit. We'll go through these fasteners and organize them also so that we can, number 1, be sure that we have everything we need to assemble the unit, and number 2, to also understand what each fastener is, what it does, and how it will be used in the assembly process. This will help greatly, again, once we begin to assemble the unit. So let's take a look in the book here, and normally in these manuals they will have an inventory list that we will go to make sure that we have all of the fasteners that we need. Here it is. So in the manual, you'll see that it lists all of the items we should have, fasteners and the other items. And it also lists the count, so we know how many of each item we're supposed to have. So what we're going to do is we're going to tear the bag open here. We're going to pour them out onto this piece of cardboard, and we're going to go through and match up all of the items with the items that are shown in the assembly guide. Now, I know you're thinking this sounds like a lot of work, but believe me, it'll pay off when we begin the assembly process and the instructions call for a specific fastener or item, and we can easily go to it and pick it up. So here's the first item. It is a 100223, and we should have 2 of these. So let's see if we can find them. Okay, that looks like it. Now let's go to the next one. It is a 110519, and we should have 4 of these. Now I'm not going to make you watch me sort all of these items out and count them, so we'll do this in a bit of a fast forward motion, and then once we're finished we'll come back. With this particular fastener, you'll notice that there's a large version and a small version. So pay attention during the assembly process to understand which one the instructions are calling for. Also notice that there are two different size wrenches here, one large and one small. We also have a package of 8 screws. These are packaged together and they will be used to fasten our drawer slides. And then finally we have our drawer slides themselves. They're all taped together in a bundle. We'll separate those later. And then the last piece is the actual knobs for the doors and the drawer, and they're packaged also together in a package. Let's get started with step 1. In step 1, we'll need the 2 square rails, and we'll need the 4 of these fasteners. And what I'm doing is just comparing the holes in the rails with the holes in the instructions to make sure I have them oriented properly. So it has a hole in the bottom, and that'll be for the foot later on. So we make sure we have the 2 bottom holes lined up. And then the holes in the sides. And if we put them together, we'll see that we have these holes that line up here. So now that we've got these 2 parts oriented correctly, let's get the fasteners we need, the 118331 fasteners, and we need 4 of those. And we've conveniently separated these out previously, so we should be able to go right to those and get them. The instructions recommend that you use a Phillips head screwdriver to screw these fasteners in. You see, I'm using a power drill or a driver to put these in. I'm doing this because when you have a lot of these fasteners, you can really get tired out pretty quickly. Now, what I'm doing with this is not driving these things totally to the bottom. You have to be very careful with these drivers to make sure that you don't strip out the screws. So just if you use an electric driver of some sort, just be sure that you don't strip out the screws. Now let's go on to step number 2. In step number 2, we'll try to locate these 2 side panels, and we'll need these wooden dowels, which are 101350. We'll need 4 of these. So I've got those dowels. I'm putting them in the holes that are indicated. Now we need to locate these side panels. If I had one suggestion to IKEA, it would be that they label the panels and the pieces as well as they do the fasteners, because sometimes you just have to go search for the pieces and compare them to the drawing to make sure you have the right one. It'd be very easy to put a sticker on these and label them A, B, C, and D. It would make them go together much easier. So what I'm doing here again is looking at the instruction manual and orienting the sides to the instructional manual. And you can see I'm sliding this down a bit so I can see that that screw goes into that hole, and the same thing on this opposite side, screw into the hole. And I see on the edge there's a hole for the screw and a hole for the dowel that we put in. So I know that I have these correct. Now I can stand it up and just slide it down onto these fasteners. You may have to give it a little persuasion with your hand there, but that's okay. Now let's do the same thing to the other side. Now, step number 3 shows us connecting these pieces together with this part number 102533. Now, these are locking cam nuts, and I'll demonstrate how these work. So here we are with a close-up view. Here's the screw that we put in, and here's the cam. You notice it's got a groove there and an arrow on the top. That arrow should be pointing toward the screw. You drop it into the hole and then you twist it, and when you do, it engages the top of that post into those grooves on the fastener and locks it into place. So let's continue with step 3. We're going to put this fastener in the hole with the arrow pointing toward the post. Give it a twist to lock it in. Do the same thing for this fastener. Put it in the hole, give it a twist, and lock it into place. Now, I had previously done the other side, so that's why you don't see me doing that now. So let's move on to step 4. In step 4, we will need those 4 short pieces of wood, and we will also need 8 of the fasteners, and we'll need the small wrench. So the fasteners we need are 100295, and we need that small wrench. I'm going to fast forward the video here, and once we have these installed, I'll come back. And I'm back. So we have those 4 pieces attached to the sides. Let's move on to step 5. In step 5, we're going to look for the 2 long pieces of the sides. Here we go. And we will need 6 fasteners to connect these to the sides. So the fasteners needed are 100295. We need 6 of those, and they'll also use that small wrench to attach. So again, I'll fast forward the video and come back once we have these attached. Now we can move on to step number 6. In step number 6, we're going to attach these 4 plastic hinge points for the shoe drawers. And you'll notice that they show a picture of that package of 8 screws with an X across it. That's indicating that they do not want you to use those 8 screws. They want you to use these other ones, which are bigger, and they're 100347. They're the screws that are not in the package. And we will need 4 of those plastic hinges. So let's flip the sides over. And we will attach these hinge points where indicated in the instructions. Now it's worth noting that the 2 legs that are sticking out on the bottom, that indicates the bottom of the shoe rack. So you want to place these hinges with the open side up so that when we put the doors in, that they will set on these hinges. Now you see again that I'm using the power driver to just drive these screws down in. I'm not using it to tighten them up. You'll see here I take a small screwdriver and then go back and tighten them by hand so that I don't get them too tight or I don't strip them out with that power driver. Next, let's move on to step 7. Now in step 7, we're going to install these 4 plastic guides for the shoe drawers. We'll need the plastic guides themselves, and we'll need 4 of the screws. Now these guides have 2 sides to them. I'm showing you here one is flat and one has ridges on it. Those ridges need to go into the hole on the side panel. So make sure you place the ridges into the hole. Now let's get the 4 fasteners to connect these pieces. In step 8, we're going to connect the drawer slides to the side of the cabinets. The first thing we need to do is separate them. They're bundled together with a piece of tape. So let's get that tape off of there. Now if we take a look at these, you'll notice they're stamped with some letters indicating where they should go. Here we can see this one says DR, so that indicates the drawer right. Here is CR, This indicates the cabinet right. Here is CL, or that's DL, the drawer left, and CL, cabinet left. So now that we know which ones we need, let's put the cabinet right and the cabinet left onto the side panels. The way you can tell that you have them on correctly is the roller goes to the inside and to the bottom. Now here's where we're going to use that small package of 8 screws that we were told not to use before. And you'll see the difference in these. They're much smaller and they're made to go into the holes on these side rails. So position the side rails as indicated in the instructions, and then we'll fasten them to the side panels using 2 of these screws on each side. In step 9, we will install 6 of these screw posts in each side of the cabinet. There will be 12 of these screws altogether. We also want to save the remaining 4 screws that we had left over from that small package. They will be used when we assemble the drawer for installing the rails there. Now let's find 12 of these 118-331 screws and install them on the side panels. In step 10, we'll need to locate this upright post that they're showing here, and they've indicated that it has a recessed hole in each side of it. So we'll need to look through these 3 posts and select the correct one, and then we'll also need to install a dowel into the end of it. And when we put this onto the side cabinets, it's important to note that that recessed hole is facing the bottom of the cabinet. So here I found the piece and I'm pointing out those 2 holes. We'll put the dowel in and we'll slide it onto the post. Now in step 11, we simply select one of those cam lock nuts, put it in the hole, and lock this upright piece into place. In step 12, we're going to install 5 additional upright sections which will eventually connect the 2 sides of the cabinets together. So the first thing we want to do is locate 7 of these dowels and put those into the side. Now that we have those dowels in, we can start selecting the upright pieces. So the first 2 are pretty obvious. It's these pieces that are flat and wide. and they'll slide right on to these upright posts and the two dowels. And you may notice that it has a sticker which would go toward the inside of the cabinet. That sticker indicates that you should fasten this cabinet to the wall for safety purposes. And then we'll put in the locking cams. Kind of jumping ahead here. This is step 13, but this requires two of those small locking cam nuts for these two upright pieces. Now that we have those in, we can go ahead and find our other upright pieces and slide them onto the post and dowels. Now this piece goes to the bottom of the cabinet, and you'll notice for the instructions it indicates that you put that hole that's closest to the bottom down. And then we'll take a locking fastener and lock this down. This is one of the big fasteners. And then we'll install the additional two upright posts, and these you'll need to put the side that's unfinished facing the inside of the cabinet, and then those holes face downward toward the bottom of the cabinet. This is so that when we put the locking nuts in, you won't see that hardware from the top. So now this is really step 13, where we install all the different locking nuts, but we've got most of them in except these last two, and we'll put those in. These again are the larger cam nuts. And now we're ready to move on to the next step. I'm going to reposition some things here where you can see a bit better as we put the top piece on here. Let's slide this over, turn this around just a bit so you can see what's going on. In step number 14, we're going to take the other side of the cabinet and sit it on top of these upright pieces that we just installed. But before we do that, we'll need to put in the dowels. You'll need 8 of those wooden dowels that go into those upright pieces. And you'll see here that I'm beginning to put this together before I put the dowels in, and then I realize it. So here I'm going to insert those 8 dowels into the side panel before I assemble it. Now that I have these dowels in, we can set this side panel on top of these uprights. Now the easiest way to do this is to get them all started before you try to push the panel down. So I'm getting one in, then the center one there, and then the front, and then the back. So you kind of want to just get them all started and going down before you start pressing them all the way in, because if you do, it'll get in a bind and you won't be able to get it together. So here I had to lift up a bit to get these ones in, and then I noticed that I missed one of the dowels here. And if you do this, it's not the end of the world. You can obviously go back and put that in before you fasten everything up. So I grabbed dowel that I missed, I inserted it in, and now I'm going to push these on down. Everything's started, so then you just tap a little at a time on each one so that it goes down evenly. You don't want to push one side down before you push the other. Now that I have everything nice and tight, we'll move on to step 15 and insert all the fasteners. So here in step 15, we're just going to insert all of the cam locking nuts and get everything tightened up together. Now the next step is going to be installing the top. So the first thing we need to do is lay the unit back down, and then we'll find our top piece, and we'll begin step 16 by putting the 2 post screws in the top. I'm just lining it up here to make sure that I have it in the right orientation. You see those 2 holes, they need to be toward the top of the shoe rack. And what I'm doing here is just putting some of the cardboard packaging underneath the shoe rack itself so that it lifts it up off the floor just a bit so that I can slide that top up against it and not pinch the rug in there. So we're going to get our screws here, our screw post 118331. We're going to put 2 of those in the top, and then we'll tighten them down. We're going to begin step 17 by placing in 4 of the wooden dowels into the top piece. And then we're just going to flip that top piece up, aligning the post screws and the wooden dowels, making sure you have the finished edge toward the front. And we'll slide that in. Again, you may have to tap on it just a bit with your hand to get those dowels and that post screw to line up and go in. And once you have those in, step 18 is installing the locking cam nuts. So make sure the top is on all the way. Take your cam nuts and place them in. And then take your screwdriver and tighten those down, and you'll see it pull that top down nice and snug to the shoe rack. And here comes Charlie. He's come to see what's going on. Hey, Charlie. He's going to help out a little bit. Well, maybe not. In step 19, we're going to find the 2 screws that hold the top on, and then we'll insert those into those holes and into the top and tighten those up. So I'm just removing that cardboard packaging that I had propping that up and twisting it around just a bit so you can see those 2 holes. And the fasteners you need are 100223, and this uses the large wrench. So look for that large wrench and tighten those up. And again, you don't have to tighten it super tight, just enough to snug in the top. Now in step 20, we are going to insert the rubber feet into the two legs. That is part number 107271, and these just stick into the bottom of the legs. There we go. Push those in. And finally, in step 21, it's showing how you stand it up and mount it to the wall. I'm not going to mount this right now. I'm just going to move it off to the side, and we'll continue with the assembly of the drawers and doors that hold the shoes. So I'm just going to move this over to the side. It's a bit heavy now, so this is where you may need an extra person to help you move it. So let's go ahead and continue the assembly process with putting together the shoe drawers. In step 22, we're going to assemble the interior of the shoe drawers. So for that, we'll need these two large plastic pieces. And these pieces will be folded to form the inside of the shoe drawers. These are where your shoes will actually sit. And per the instructions, you want to fold it where that ridge is facing toward the outside. Then we'll get the end caps, and we'll place those end caps onto this large plastic piece once we have it folded. So I'm just looking to make sure I have the right cap piece and I have the plastic piece in the correct orientation. And then it just snaps together. You line each of the clips up, and then I'm just using my hand to kind of pound it together. Once you have one side, you just flip it over, and we'll do the same thing with the other side. That's actually step 23. And if you look at these, you'll see it's a bit hard to see in the video here, but there is an R stamped on this one and an L stamped on this one. And those letters, the R and L, go to the outside along with those little tabs that stick out, which will engage into those hinges that we assembled onto the shoe cabinet earlier. So again, we're going to fold this plastic piece with the ridge to the outside. Get our correct end. Line up the tabs and snap together. Flip it over. Again, step 23. Line up the tabs. Takes a little bit of finagling to get those in, but there we go. Snap them in. And now we have the insides of our shoe drawers together. In step 24, we're going to slide this additional plastic piece inside of here to form a shelf. In each end of the shoe shelf that we just put together has a little groove in it, and this piece here just inserts into that groove and slips down. So again, it's easiest to get it straight and slide it into the top one and then slide it down together so that it doesn't get sideways and bind. And then once you have it slid down, it's got some tabs that just snap into the bottom of that piece that we just put together. And I'm trying different ways here to try to get it in. I finally found the best way is to hold it on the end and then just tap it together and it'll snap together. You see it snapping in there. And that's one shelf complete. We're going to do the same step for the next one. Get the plastic piece. Make sure the tabs are facing downward. Slide the edges into the grooves. And then just slide it down. Now here, I found that it's easier, instead of hitting on the long side, is to hit on the back side. There we go. And 2 and 3. So you hold the front side and kind of hit the back side and it'll snap in much easier. And there we go. Those are complete. In step 26, we're going to place the plastic shoe shelves that we just assembled onto the door. Now these shoe shelves that we just assembled have little plastic tabs that will insert into the door front. So just make sure you stick those little tabs down into the holes on the door. And then in step 27, we will insert the screws that hold those plastic shelves to the door. In this step, I did find that it was helpful to have a Phillips head screwdriver with a long shaft on it. And that was just so that you could get the screw there in your hand up against this plastic part and get the screw to screw in. It was so close, I couldn't do it with the power driver. And that little short Phillips head screwdriver I had also just wouldn't do the job. So in this case, it's beneficial to have a long Phillips head screwdriver. So we'll continue to put these screws in. There's 6 of them all together. 4 across the bottom. And then there's 1 on each side of the top. And for this step, you may have to pull the plastic part over to line up the hole in the plastic with the hole in the door. And that's what I'm having to do here. Push that plastic over, line the hole up, and then screw the screw in. And we'll repeat this process for the second shelf. And there we have it. Both of the shoe drawers are complete. In step 28, it shows inserting the shoe drawers into the cabinet. I'm going to skip that step for now because we don't have the cabinet mounted. I'm going to move on to step 29, where we're going to install the knobs onto the shoe cabinet. And again, remember the knobs are in the large bag and the screws are on our piece of cardboard that we sorted previously. So you just slide the screw through the back of the holes in the door and then thread the knob onto the screw. And what I'm doing here is just holding my finger on the back of the screw and then threading the knob on, and you'll feel that it will tighten up just fine without using a screwdriver. If you want, you can use a Phillips head screwdriver and hold the back of the screw and tighten it that way also. Here I'm going to do the second drawer. Same method, insert the screw through the door. Now here I'm going to use the screwdriver just to show you that you can hold it with a screwdriver if you like. Screw that knob on and then just tighten it down. So there we go. We have the knobs on our shoe drawers. We'll set those to the side and then we'll start putting our drawer together. I'm going to begin the drawer assembly by just bringing out all the remaining pieces and laying them on the floor. That's the back, the two sides, the front of the drawer, and then this striped piece is the bottom of the drawer. In step 30, we'll begin by locating the front of the drawer, which is the painted piece, and then we'll insert 2 of the post screws on each end of the front of the drawer. So I'm just starting them here by hand, and then I'll take the power drill and tighten them up. Now that we have those in, we can insert the sides of the drawers, and the holes should be facing toward the outside of the finished drawer. And in step 32, we'll insert the locking cams. And tighten those up. In step number 33, we'll insert the bottom of the drawer into the groove that's on the front of the drawer. And then step 34, we will place the back of the drawer onto the bottom, making sure the bottom is in the groove of that back drawer. And then we'll need to locate these 2 fasteners, number 110519. They're plastic, and they just press into the holes, so they're not really threaded. So you'll need to press them in just a little bit to hold the back of the drawer, and then we'll have to take our hammer. This is where we would use the hammer and drive those in. So I've had to go get the hammer here, and then we'll tap those in. I didn't tap them all the way in. I wanted to turn the drawer around and make sure I could get the other 2 lined up before I tighten everything up. Okay, now we're ready to tap these in. Be sure you hold the back of the drawer firmly as you're tapping these in so it doesn't rack sideways and come apart on you. And then here I just stood it on its end and finished the assembly. Okay, so we got the drawer put together. Now in step number 35, we're going to put the drawer slides on. And these are the two remaining slides that we have left over from when we unwrapped them and assembled the first two onto the cabinet. Again, these should say DR and DL on the slides. And they just wrap around the corner of the bottom of the drawer. And you notice we have the drawer turned over here. And you just want to make sure that the wheel on these slides is facing toward the back of the drawer. There, I'm looking for that designation on the drawer. And then remember the remaining small screws that we set aside. Those are the screws you'll need to fasten these drawer slides onto the drawer. And they just screw into the side. Okay, there's the first one. And these drawer slides are actually what holds the bottom of the drawer in from sliding out either end also. Okay, so we have the drawer completely together. I'm just going to make sure these are tightened up here on the end. I think that one was in a little bit crooked, so I took the screw back out, lined it up, and put it back in again. There we go. So we have our drawer together. The final step is step 36. We're going to place the knobs on our drawer. And this is done in the same fashion that we did on the shoe drawers. We'll locate our screws, slide through the front of the drawer, and then just thread on the knobs. Slide the screw through and thread on the knob. So there we go. We've got our shoe drawers and our top drawer complete. And that's the end. All right. So I told you we could do it. A lot of steps, but we were able to get through it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the cabinet over and I'm going to set it on this box. Because you notice it only has legs on the front. It's meant to sit on the shoe molding that goes around your wall. You see on the wall behind we have a shoe molding, and that's where the cabinet sits. Or it can just sit up against the wall. Now to insert the drawer, you just lean it down, put the rollers in, and it should slide freely in and out. For the shoe cabinets, you'll notice that it has a tab here that goes into this hook that we put in the cabinet. So again, that's step 28, so we'll go back to that. You lean it back, you hook that little plastic piece into the piece in the cabinet. And as you can see, it can be a bit tricky. And then on the top, there's a groove that you have to pull it back a bit and slide it in to the plastic piece. Okay, there we have it. It's in there. That should close and open freely. Let's do the last one, and I'll see if I can get a little closer view for you to show you how it goes together. Here we go. So there's the tab that we put on the inside of the cabinet. And then here is the foot on the drawer, the little round tab. That just sits in there. And then on the top, that little tab that sticks out, you just have to pull this out and clip it into that arched rail there. There we go. It's in the top and in the bottom. And there we go, the finished cabinet. Look at that. Nice. Ready for some shoes. Now we'll need to mount this to the wall, and it's important to fasten it to the wall so it doesn't turn over or fall over on you when we open those drawers and put the shoes in, because you can see it can be a bit top heavy. And here comes Dixie and Charlie to check out our finished work. What do you think, Dixie? Yeah, looks good, she says. How about it, Charlie? I don't think he really cares. There's no snacks in there, so he doesn't care about it. But job well done. And here's the finished view of the cabinets mounted to the wall in our mudroom. I think it looks quite nice.